Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Phoenix Raceway, home of Championship 4 weekend. And boy, did we have an exciting battle for this year's Bill France Cup and the NASCAR Cup Series. 4 contenders battling it out all day long, tight together, neck and neck. And in the end, the dominant driver of 2021 is most fitting to be this year's champion. Let's get into it. Number 1, Kyle Larson. One of the most exciting drivers in NASCAR history is now a NASCAR Cup Series champion as he captured yesterday's season finale 500, once again winning a race to win the championship as we've done since 2014. Captured the win and the championship, winning it over Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Elliott. Kyle Larson, just an incredible year for him and Cliff Daniels and this number 5 team. From being out of the driver's seat for all of last year for what he had said in that iRacing event, to taking sensitivity training and Rick Hendrick taking a chance on bringing him back to NASCAR to drive for his team and bring back the famous number 5 car, which, by the way, it's the first championship for the 5 car since 1996 with Terry Labonte. Kyle Larson had to live up to the legacy that is Hendrick Motorsports and bring wins and possibly a championship to the team, and he did that this season. Started out the year with the win in Las Vegas, and it carried over to a dominant regular season where he won a lot of races, a lot of stages, and captured the regular season championship by a couple of points over Denny Hamlin in the regular season finale at Daytona. Then the playoffs came, and they were still on their A game. They were so dominant. They won at Bristol, they won at the Charlotte Roval, and then they won 2 of the first 3 races in the round of 8 at Texas and Kansas, and they put it all together yesterday. I'll be honest, at the beginning of the race, the 5 team, they definitely struggled with the race car. They were a good short-run car. They weren't necessarily a good long-run car, and I'll talk about that and how it played into making it a great battle between the 2 Hendrick cars and the 2 Gibbs cars. But Kyle Larson's team definitely seemed to strive during the short runs. And at one point in the race, racing their teammate Chase Elliott, the championship contender and the reigning Cup champion, they made a little contact on the back straightaway coming off of turn 2, and that flared the right rear fender from Kyle Larson by just a little bit. But you know what? It seemed to help him in his speed because he definitely was fast in the latter stages of Stage 2 and all of Stage 3. Then we had a couple of late race cautions which changed the outcome of the race. And then on a caution with less than 30 laps to go, everybody came to pit road, and Kyle Larson's pit crew put together the best pit stop of the year. A championship-winning pit stop. They were 4th in the running order, and they come out in 1st place after that pit stop. And on the restart, they were able to hold off both of the Gibbs cars, and they never looked back. You know, they tried to give him a run late, but he was just too fast on those short runs, and he ended up being this year's Cup Series champion. It was a special moment. He showed so much emotion. I mean, we didn't even know if Kyle Larson would ever come back to NASCAR after what happened to him a year ago. And to come back this year, score double-digit wins, the first driver to do it since Jimmy Johnson did it in 2007, and that year he was the champion with 10 wins, believe it or not. Larson put it all together yesterday, and, you know, him and Cliff Daniels, the whole 5 team, you know, they got to be so proud of him and his accomplishments. Rick Hendrick was happy. Jeff Gordon, the future vice chairman of Hendrick Motorsports, was there, and he was very happy. And Larson was getting so much admiration from every driver around NASCAR and all over the world. Mario Andretti congratulated him. Tony Stewart even called him the greatest race car driver we've ever seen. He might be right, but it was just a great moment for Larson to celebrate with his wife and his children, his son Owen riding with him in the car towards the stage where they would present him the race-winning trophy and, of course, the Bill France Cup. Such a special moment. I mean, the most dominant driver in NASCAR this year deserved to win the Cup Series championship. I mean, yeah, I know the dominant drivers in the Xfinity Truck Series, they didn't win the championship, but consistency mattered, and Kyle Larson was truly the most consistent driver in NASCAR this season, and I can't tell you how happy I am for him. Every NASCAR fan has got to feel very happy. Even if you like another driver, you got to feel happy for this incredible comeback story for Kyle Larson. He has definitely matured as a person, and I think he's going to do a great job representing our sport in the NASCAR Cup Series as the Cup champion next year. So congrats to Kyle Larson and the entire 5 team. Number 2, Martin Truex Jr. Oh, so close. They really tried it yesterday. They had a great long-run car. They didn't qualify well. They started 12th. Remember, we had qualifying for the first time since the Indianapolis Road Course race, I believe. Truex had pretty decent speed in practice, but they were set up for the long runs. And we had a couple of those runs yesterday, and it looked like the Truex was going to run away with the championship. However, the late race caution kind of hurt them. Actually, a couple of cautions before that, they were pitting under green, and the caution came out when Anthony Alfredo hit the wall outside of turn 2. Truex was able to stay in front of the leader and prevent himself from going a lap down. He got all of his track position back, and he appeared to be in position to win. And then the late race caution for David Starr, losing a brake rotor in place, and one of those brake rotors laying on the track. Truex had to pit, and they ended up coming out second behind Larson, and they didn't necessarily have the short run speed in that 19 car. They were dominant on the long runs. You could see that in stage 1. You could see it in stage 2 at times when we had those long runs. In stage 3, they had a chance. You know, Truex was pretty dejected in his post-race interview, but he thanked his guys for all their hard work. But this is the 3 out of the last 4 years that he's been in the championship for, he finished second. That's, you know the old saying, second sucks, and it definitely does. And Truex even publicly admitted he doesn't even know if he's going to ever have a chance to win a championship again. I mean, he came out earlier this year saying that if this next-gen car that we're going to run next year, if he doesn't run competitively and battles for a championship, he might hang it up after next year. So we might be seeing Martin Truex Jr. for the final time in a Cup car next year. I don't believe that, but some people might. However, the 19 team should be proud of what they accomplished. They came in kind of as the underdog because you had a comeback kid, you had the defending Cup champ, you had a dude that's been so close to winning championships but hadn't been able to pull through as of yet. Truex kind of came as the underdog with 4 wins on the season, and all of them have been at short tracks. And he won at Phoenix earlier this year, and I felt like he was going to carry that into this race, and it almost happened. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, but kudos to the 19 team with Truex and second-year crew chief James Small. They put together a very solid season, and I have no doubt that they will be contenders once again for this championship next year. Number 3, Denny Hamlin. Once again, close, but no cigar. Denny Hamlin has been so close in his career to winning championships, starting from his rookie year in 2006, where he finished 3rd in the standings. 2010, he won the most races other than Jimmy Johnson, but ended up struggling at Homestead. And then 2014 made the championship 4, but finished 3rd out of the 4. You know, he had chances in 2016, 2017, and of course 2019. He had one of the most dominant seasons of his career, but ultimately had a bad pit stop late in the race. And then last year, they struggled for the most part as far as the championship 4 drivers. Yesterday, they kind of had the speed on the long runs like Truex. Believe it or not, actually, 3 of the 4 championship drivers led yesterday, and Denny Hamlin was not one of those drivers. So they definitely struggled for the most part. They were in the game, though. They were more in the game in this race than they were last year. However, it just wasn't enough for him. But you still can't say enough about Denny Hamlin. This season was perhaps his best season. The wins doesn't show it, but he did score 2 wins and get all the way to this point. Oh, and by the way, he finished every single race this season. He did not have a single DNF. That's pretty impressive. I will give him that. But, you know, this season he should still look back and be proud of it. Not just as a driver, but also as a co-owner. He co-owns 2311 Racing. They didn't necessarily have the finish they'd hoped for yesterday. They crashed out early with Bubba Wallace, and he was not happy with Corey LaJoie. But Denny Hamlin gave it his best yesterday, and it looked like in the last 30 laps, he was gaining on Martin Truex Jr., and the caution came out. I knew that time his chances were done because they did not have the short run speed to keep up with those Hendrick cars. But nonetheless, the 11 car put together a solid effort, and they'll be back next year. Number 4, Chase Elliott, the defending Cup Series champion. You know they say in this format it's tough to go back-to-back, and it's tough to repeat as a champion in this format. Well, Kyle Busch did it in 2015 and 2019, and I felt like that this was the year that Chase Elliott was going to win back-to-back in this format. And he definitely had the speed yesterday. They had good short run speed like Kyle Larson. At the beginning, Elliott seemed to be the best car on the short runs until the final stage when Larson kind of caught up to him. They didn't have the long run speed. They were pretty bad in the traffic, but for the most part, they had speed. And Chase Elliott has always been good here at Phoenix. And, you know, in his post-race interview, he was proud of the effort they put in, and he congratulates teammate Larson, as he should, as a teammate. And he gets to pass the mantle as champion to Kyle Larson for this season. The 9 team in general, I know it wasn't necessarily the best season they'd hoped for as the reigning Cup champion, but they had a solid year overall. They did win 2 races. They made it to the championship 4. They had a lot of top 20 finishes, top 10 finishes, and top 5 finishes this year that helped them get there, and they overcame the adversity of battling with Kevin Harvick throughout these playoffs and that wreck at the Roval. The round of 8, they were consistent all around and were able to put together all the points to make it to this point. And they had a chance yesterday. You know, they ended up getting 5th place because they got passed late by Ryan Blaney, who wasn't a part of the championship 4. But regardless, Chase Elliott was very proud of the effort. He said, we'll be back stronger next year. And I have no doubt that Chase Elliott can be stronger next year and compete on the same level as Kyle Larson did. Kyle Larson was just the best Hendrick car all year long. But Chase Elliott was definitely up there. He had a chance, and he definitely put together a good effort. And we'll see if he can try to get a second championship next year. I mean, the future is for Hendrick Motorsports in general is very bright. With Elliott, with Larson, with Bowman, and William Byron. Those guys, they're set for greatness in these next couple years. And number 5, so many lasts for this year's NASCAR season. Concluded yesterday with so many lasts as far as drivers with teams, teams in the sport, and other things. I hope you got the time for all this, so let's get into all of that. The first big last, obviously, is Brad Keselowski's last race with Team Penske. It was announced during the summer that he would be moving to Roush Fenway Racing next year as a co-owner and also drive the number 6 car. The name for the team is expected to, be announced in the next couple of weeks with Keselowski's name added to it. Probably it's going to be Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, RFK Racing, you might say, but who knows. But Keselowski put together a nice finish yesterday in his last run with Team Penske, a 10th place run, and he celebrated with his entire crew and his 2 teammates, Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney. He celebrated with that giant glass of Miller Lite. Remember that in 2012 when he won the championship and he was on SportsCenter and he was drunk? That was a good moment. So funny. But Keselowski's tenure at Team Penske is one to look back on as memorable, and I have a good feeling that Keselowski can bring Roush back to the top next year, and I think Austin Cindric will do very well in the 2 car next year. So it's a good end for a nice tenure with Brad Keselowski and Team Penske. Another last yesterday was the last race for Chip Ganassi Racing as a NASCAR Cup Series team. They're not done with motorsports completely. They're still going to do IndyCar. They're still going to do IMSA. But as far as NASCAR goes, yesterday was their last race. Ross Chastain was the highest finishing Ganassi car in 14th. Kurt Busch finished 16th. And of course, next year, those 2 are off to different teams. Chip Ganassi Racing obviously is taking their assets and selling them to Trackhouse Racing, where Ross Chastain will be, and will be teammate to Daniel Suarez. As for Kurt Busch, he'll be moving on to the second entry at 2311 Racing and be teammates to Bubba Wallace. I think both of those drivers are going to be very successful next year. And for Chip Ganassi, these 21 years in NASCAR, I think have been one of the best that he could have possibly asked for. And it's kind of fitting and kind of ironic how one of his former drivers, in Kyle Larson, goes out and wins a championship for a different team in the last race of Chip Ganassi Racing as a NASCAR team. That's pretty ironic, but I think it's kind of a good send-off in a way as your former driver won a championship. That's something at least. Another last was Matt DiBenedetto's last ride with the Wood brothers. He does not know his status for 2022. He gave it a good effort yesterday. He ran top 10 for the most part, ended up getting 12th, 18th in the final standings and points. I think that DiBenedetto's tenure with the Wood brothers was a good one, yet he wasn't able to get them their 100th win. He still put together some solid runs, and we'll see how Harrison Burton does in the 21 car next year. As far as Matty D, I hope he can find a ride next year. I don't think it's going to be Cup Series because I don't see any other competitive team that he could sign with. He might go to the Xfinity Series. He might go to the Truck Series. But regardless, Matt DiBenedetto is still determined to win a NASCAR race, and I have no doubt that he will eventually. Also another last, Ryan Newman. Probably the last race we'll see with him in NASCAR. He did come out and admit that he's not ready to retire. He just wants to win a NASCAR race. He wants to win again. He wants to win NASCAR races. He hadn't done it since 2017 at this track in Phoenix, where he won by staying out late and holding off all those guys on fresh tires. We'll remember Ryan Newman for all of his pole awards that he won with Team Penske and Stewart-Haas Racing. He won the Brake Car 400 in 2013. He won the Daytona 500 in 2008. He's had some good moments in his career, but he's had some struggles the last few years. And of course, last year, the last lap accident of the Daytona 500 and how he survived that is unbelievable. But they didn't really have it last year, and they definitely didn't have the speed this year. Finished 23rd in possibly his final NASCAR race. Might be the last time we see the Rocket Man, but he had a good career with NASCAR if it is done for him. He'll probably still run some USAC races, though. At least he's got other things to keep an eye out. It's also the last race for Todd Gordon as a NASCAR Cup Series crew chief. He retired after the conclusion of yesterday's race, and Ryan Blaney got a 4th place. That's a nice send-off for Todd. He's been very successful in the sport. He won a championship with Joey Logano in 2018. He's a really good crew chief in the sport. He's been around for quite a long time. He's He's gotten race wins. He's gotten, as mentioned, a championship with Logano. We're definitely going to miss him atop the pit box for Ryan Blaney, but I got a great feeling that Jonathan Hasler, who's with the Wood Brothers this year, will do great with Ryan Blaney in 2022. So also the last race for Ryan Preece with JTG Doherty Racing. They're scaling back to a one-car team next year, and Ryan Preece's status is uncertain at the moment. I think he'll probably find Ryan in the Xfinity or Truck Series. Cup Series, maybe in a couple of years if an opportunity arises, but I think, Ryan Preece had a little bit better year this year for a team that ran without a charter the entire season. Remember, they had to qualify at Daytona because we wouldn't qualify again until Circuit of the Americas in May. They made the Daytona 500 on speed, and they had some good runs earlier this year. Unfortunately, it didn't materialize into trying to make the playoffs, but they had a better year this year than they did in 2020. That was a really rough year for him. So also the last race for Derek Cope's team, Starcom Racing, and it was only fitting that their last race, they crashed. They blew a right front tire, hit the wall in 3 and 4. I don't want to be rude, but it seems like every NASCAR race that is on in the Cup Series, a caution comes out, it involves the double zero. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but it seems like every time we're running a NASCAR Cup race and there's a caution, it's the double zero blowing up, hitting the wall, spinning around. I mean, last week, he collided with Josh Bilicki and turned around on the yellow and got him a 5-lap penalty for aggressive driving. That was probably the most memorable moment of the season, but they're going to sell their charter, most likely back to Spire. Now, their charter could be staying with Spire, or it could go to one of the new NASCAR teams coming next year, like the second 2311 entry, or GMS Racing. We'll see what happens, but for Derek Cope's tenure as a Cup owner, wasn't the best, but at least he was able to put together a Cup team, so we thank them for being in the sport for a brief period of time. And it was also the last race yesterday for NBCSN. Earlier this year, NBCSN announced that they wouldn't shut down operations because of the COVID pandemic, obviously, and that threw a wrench into everything, literally starting last year. So NBCSN will no longer broadcast sports, NASCAR, any of that stuff. However, NASCAR will have NBC broadcast them next year, and one of their affiliates in the NBC Universal Studios, USA Network, will broadcast most of the NASCAR races next year in the Cup Series and Xfinity Series. So at least they had a backup plan about what other networks they will broadcast races other than NBC, because, of course, with football and other types of sports, hockey and Olympics at times, they have to balance their time with those networks. So it'll be good to have USA Network come aboard next year with NASCAR. And the other big last yesterday was it was the last race for the Generation 6 car. Introduced in 2013, looking exactly like the cars you would see on a road or your typical show cars. We introduced the sport and we changed the bodies here and there. We would change the Camry into, Camry would change bodies in 2015 and 2017. We had the Ford Fusion, and then we had the Mustang come along in 2019. And of course, we had the Camaro SS, we had the, not the Camaro, the Impala SS, and then we changed it over to the Camaro in 2018. The Camaro, Mustang, and Camry will be around next year with the next-gen car, but as far as the Gen 6 car, they've had some very good races. I could say 2014 was the best season for those races, but they've had some good races the last couple of years. The 750 package for short tracks has been amazing. 550, it's kind of bipolar. People like it, people don't like it. Well, it's what they had, and they had their moments, but, it's going to be a little weird because next year these next-gen cars are composite bodies, which means these teams won't build cars out of sheet metal anymore. So going to be very, very interesting how teams build their cars and prepare these cars and get them ready for next season. But I think the Gen 6 car also got a good send-off yesterday. It was a good race and a good championship battle all around. So there you have it. The NASCAR season is officially in the books. It's officially over, and we have 3 new champions in Ben Rhodes in the Truck Series, Daniel Hemrick in the Xfinity Series, and Kyle Larson in the NASCAR Cup Series. And what a championship battle it was yesterday. It was so much fun to watch, and packed house. I mean, that place was packed with fans all around. It was so encouraging. And next year will be even more encouraging, knowing that most of the races will have full capacity and not have restrictions based off of COVID as we're starting to get vaccinated. So it was a great season all around. I'm going to do a video later this weekend concluding, basically recapping the season as a whole and looking back on it and saying Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope you all enjoyed the final race of the NASCAR Cup Series season yesterday. I want you to leave your comments below what you thought about the last race of the season and what you thought about Kyle Larson winning a championship. It was a great race, a great championship battle, and once again, congratulations to Kyle Larson, Cliff Daniels, the number 5 team, and Hendrick Motorsports. They are the champions of the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series season. So thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe, like. Once again, congrats to Kyle Larson. I hope you all enjoyed the NASCAR season, and I can't wait for this offseason to be over with and for 2022 to get here and we can get a new season started. Bye!